Thank you so much to our panelists for being here. I'm really excited about this day. Thank you for coming in on a Saturday. So as you can see, we have a lot of panelists. We're eager to talk to you today. So I'll give my quick 2-minute spiel, but then I want to make sure that we have as much time to get to the questions as we possibly can. And of course, if you all have questions, please do raise your hand at any time. We'll also open it up at the end. But as Becca said, my name is Daraiha, like Daraiha Sunshine. That's how you remember. I work on the Computer Science, Education, and Media team at Google, and we strive to change the narrative of computer science in media as it pertains to girls and underrepresented minorities. And that includes, but is not limited to, people of color, folks of the LGBTQIA community, and people with disabilities. And we really just want to fight to make sure that all of us, everyone in this room, is represented on TV, on screen, and behind the scenes in tech, right? Because it's really, really important. And we just want to make sure that what we see on TV really reflects and mirrors our reality, right? So we want to see female programmers, we want to see Black and Latino engineers, we want to see Native American scientists, et cetera, because they all exist, right? And so the more we portray it on TV, the more they see it, and then the more they aspire to be it, right? Because if you can see it, you can be it, and we really, really, really repeat that every time because it's just so, so, so important. And we worked on shows such as Miles from Tomorrowland, Silicon Valley, The Fosters, and many other pieces of content. And now we're here today with the masterminds behind and on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we're going to talk about why it is so important to have STEM and technology on TV and making sure that it's diverse, right? That we have everyone who looks like us represented on screen. And so, again, thank you all for being here today. I think it would just be really helpful if we just kind of start down the line. Again, repeat your name and kind of a little bit more about what you do on set. And so we'll start with you, Maurissa.
Okay. My name is Maurissa Tancharoen. Sometimes I go by Maurissa Tancharoen Whedon because I'm married to him. But as far as...
First big mistake.
Yeah, first huge mistake I've ever made. Just kidding. I love you, honey.
Thank you.
Oh. But professionally, I like to hold on to my Thai last name because it's important to be a Thai American working in the business. I co-created the show with Jed and Joss Whedon and Jeff Bell. And that's what I do. I write on the show, I produce the show, and sprinkle fairy dust where I can.
Nice.
She did some of it for me. Jed Whedon, along with Maurissa and Jeff, we run the show, which means that we start with blank boards with no ideas of what's going to happen, and we stare at them for a long time in fear, and then get together with the rest of the writers and sort of start hammering out the general shape of the season. Then we break the stories, write the stories, and then see them through production all the way to editing and until they air. So it's fun. It's a lot, but fun. And we get to work with this guy.
My name's Gregg, and I fight Hydra. Sometimes evil inhumans. And then every once in a while I remember, oh no, wait, that's the acting part. And really, my name's Clark, and I'm here to act the great stuff that these guys write, the amazing stories that these guys write. And a lot of times, sometimes, I'm in front of a green screen being very scared of something, and I'm saying what we all say on our show, which is, come on, Kolpack. Come on, Sabrina. Because later, those two geniuses, who will speak in just a moment, put in everything that we're looking at that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and make up stories with Jed, Maurissa, and the rest of the writers. I think it's really important for you guys to know, because what we're going to do later is we work together. We work in a group, and though we may, at the end of the day, say we're going to do that, it's everybody coming together, putting their ideas, and doing that together, which is how we come up with a lot of stuff. And it's so the fact we're very excited we get to do that with you guys today. And the other thing that we do is, in addition to being writers, and I think what all of us up here are just really curious, which is why we like science and the STEM, and, the different aspects. I prefer STEAM because also the arts is part of that for us.
Yeah,
but
we're scientists too.
No, but like Jed and Maurissa do music, and music is tied to math, and visual effects, it's all math. But because these guys are artists, they find a way to communicate with that, and so it all coming together.
I'm terrible at math. Terrible.
But with music, she can communicate stuff. And so everything that we do is not super narrow slotted, but we're kind of jack of all trades, master of none, but try and be really good at a lot of different things, which is what makes our jobs, I think, the most interesting.
All right. I'm Mark Kolpack, and I'm the visual effects supervisor on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. My job is to interpret what they write into a visual effects narrative that supports story and character. And ultimately, that's what we do. We're a support mechanism to help flesh out that aspect of the show that we can't practically shoot. So if you can't, except for in elements, as Clark said, where we have a green screen or a blue screen, but beyond that becomes a world that Sabrina and I actually, develop, create, and then go back and forth with these fine folks over here and narrow the beam and make it look the way you see it on television.
So when you see somebody go like this, they're on set feeling really stupid because they're going, and then they go, oh, please, Kolpack, please make lightning bolts come out of my fingers, they're going to look really terrible.
Exactly.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Arnold. I'm the visual effects producer on the show, and I work with Mark and these guys to make sure our show gets done on time and budget and looks as cool as we can make it.
Great, thank you. Sabrina, quick follow-up on that. How did you get into visual effects?
Oh, that's a really good question. I saw a movie called The Abyss. I've always been in the arts. I went to performing arts high school, kind of like the show Fame, if any of you are familiar with that. I went to that sort of a high school. Always wanted to do something in the arts. And I saw the movie Abyss, and I said, I want to do that. I want to make what they're doing there. And so I just pursued it. I went to college, I moved to Los Angeles, and just kind of got into visual effects that way.
That's awesome. So what kinds of effects go into each episode, and how long does it take to create? And Mark, maybe you want to chime in too on that.
You do some more.
The kinds of effects. They vary. We have certain staples, which if you know the show, you know the Zephyr 1 is one of our planes. It's a 3D asset. It doesn't really exist. There are sets that support the interiors, but the exterior is all CG. We have the Quinjet, same kind of dynamic there. And then we get into things such as character animation, which this year we did a transformation of Blair Underwood, the actor who played Andrew. He became Lash. Hive at the end in our season finale was revealed. That was all character animation. That was all driven with, we had dots on Brett's face. Those dots are for, so the computer can actually track his muscle and facial movement. So therefore we can embrace his performance, put it into the actual CG head, and on top of that, build a little bit, because what looks really good on a human face, and you can read because we all know what a human face looks like, sometimes we have to exaggerate it a little bit on a head like Hive that was very alien, and he had other aspects. He had tentacles and things.
There's a huge part of Mark's job, which is making our actors look really silly, so he's able to do the visual effects.
Right.
Like there's dots on faces. Clark, I think at one point has had a green cap.
Yeah.
On his head. There's a lot of fluorescent,
Motion capture suits with
motion
dots
capture
on
suits
them
with
and
dots,
ping pong
and
balls on your head.
When Deathlock was missing the leg, he had like a nice sort of tight neon green unitard thing happening. So
Yeah,
that's
and one of the things is that, what I always tell the actors, because, and I won't speak from an actor's thing because that's Clark's deal, but they want it as real as possible. They want to experience everything right then and there because that is their world. And when I come in, it kind of throws a monkey wrench into it because it's something that isn't there. And so, with the world of superheroes, like I explained to Chloe when we were designing her, abilities, her quake powers, was, the superheroes are shoulders back, chin down, and they do that, and so she always feels uncomfortable, and I say, well, look the more uncomfortable you become, the more cool it looks, So we do a lot of that, and
So you shamed her into it.
I shamed her, absolutely, and luckily it worked out. But the point is that it's a collaboration because what's really important with visual effects is not getting into what I call a railroad track. And that is where you have a rail here and a rail here, and when they go like this, the two never meet. Then it's a misfire for visual effects and for the performance. We need to have the actor and the visual effects need to become one, and then it becomes completely believable.
And I'll say also another thing that, there's obviously the plane and the character animation, but some of our favorite effects are little things that you would never think are a visual effect. You know, an example is we had a rooftop scene with a big fight and a billboard that's on fire. And it was a fake rooftop. We built it on our soundstage. It was all green screen, so the city wasn't there. And none of the fire was there because we couldn't do that on a soundstage. And all the embers falling were not there. So that scene is an example of how you're supporting story, because you said you're in a supporting role. I would say sometimes you're in a starring role. When a moment isn't working in an episode and we're like, we just need Kolpack to make a nice shot of the plane. But those poetry moments like that are another important aspect where you're just seeing it and it's seamless and you don't realize that there's visual effects. I think that's when they're the best.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it just was a beautiful moment because the characters and the story and the acting and then everything around it just all, like I said, came together. You know, and even the blades on the helicopter weren't there. They weren't, you know, that's all CG. So the helicopter was there, just the shape of it, you know, we had a prop sort of set there, but it just plays, and then you add the music to it, and it all just became sort of what Jed likes to say, poetry.
That's fascinating. Clark, I'm just curious, is that hard as an actor, though? This is just like my own personal curiosity. If nothing's really there and you act, I guess it just speaks to your own brilliance, but...
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it has to be that.
I've thought about this a lot, and that's what I keep coming back to. But it's nice that Mark thinks he helps. No, there's a great balance that's struck. For example, the Quinjet, which is kind of a shuttle jet that has cloaking and its kind of shield has been in the shadows since the end of season 1. And there is a practical Quinjet. I'm pretty sure it's the same one that I had a scene with Captain America in The Avengers.
He's sitting right over there, by the way.
Oh yeah, good shirt.
Oh yes, Cap. It's time for a new cap. That works for me. And so there's a lot of literal manifestations of the world that help you get part of the way there. And then at a certain point, as we said, you're reacting to something, and it's a little scary when it's just a flat green screen.
Takes getting used to.
But then there's a lot of wind, coming at you or something, and Mark has the iPad of destiny.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like, oh God, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm reacting to. I don't know where I'm looking. I'm afraid it's going to look goofy later. And then Mark shows up, and you're like, oh, thank God, there he has the iPad. And he shows you, oh, that's the guy I'm looking at. That's terrifying. And it's a lot easier then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Also tell them about working off camera with actors, how you guys help each other. That's a big thing too, I think. Where just in terms of the pretend of it, you do have sometimes whoever you're playing with is also there and you're reacting to that moment.
That's a great point. That's a great point. We have each other, there's a collective, there's a lot of things.
Everybody gets to feel stupid at some point.
Exactly.
So you bond together about it.
Yeah. It's like, I think of those, when a lot of skydivers jump out of the plane and they're all holding hands. If there was only one parachute between them, that's what it feels like. And Kolpack's the parachute. I'm going to abandon that metaphor now. It's about embracing an imaginative world. What I like about it is it's not just pure realism, no offense to CSI, but this just a procedural thing. We have another dimension, which is science fiction in a way, the Marvel universe. And I've always liked that because I loved science fiction when I was a kid, because you can take things and put them 5 years in the future and add one slight shift to what we're doing, or you take what's going on in our world and expand it out a little bit. Like, what if a certain presidential candidate who wanted to build a wall was president? How bad might that be? And it lets you look at things in an imaginative context and realize what a horrible mistake that would be. And so we get to be in that imaginative world together, and it's grounded by it only works. The example I use is there was a guy named Blackout.
Yes.
And he could make all the lights go out wherever he went and do some other scary stuff. And thank God I have Fitz and Simmons, brilliant scientists, working together, and they had rigged the lights of this theater to be able to have power to take this guy out. But that's not going to come until later, so I'm standing there with a theater light going,
Yeah.
He's still standing there. He's not going to go out till later. Okay. And luckily the other actors are all there reacting, and you create this imaginative cloud, and they're backing you up and supporting you. And then later you see it and you think, oh, it's just so many times I want to drive over to your house in the middle of the night and hug you.
That's so cool.
It's not about the show, it's just because you're so huggable.
I think another good example is that you had that last scene with Brett. And it's two actors, two great actors. They've been working together for years, having a final moment. And you rehearsed it, and it was great. And here we are, we're about to roll. And then at the last minute, Kolpack comes up to you and says, "Yeah, but Hive's head is a little bit taller, so look at his eyebrows." So you're like trying to capture that same moment that you had with him, but without looking at his face.
Really intense. We're saying goodbye in a lot of ways. It's our final real shot to act together. And I'm staring at his beautiful eyebrows. Yeah. And so much interesting stuff is in his eyes. I just want to look there. There's dots everywhere.
His face is covered in polka dots.
And I'm imagining the tentacles coming off his head like a Rasta.
That's nice. Thank you. I want to ask the students a quick question. You all are not off the hook. You get questions too. But I'm wondering, how many of you have characters that you watch on TV that inspire you, that you relate to? Any show of hands? Anyone want to shout out? Or yes, you in the back. Yes, blue sweater. Hold on, wait for your mic. There we go. The blue.
Sometimes I go back and look at the Avengers movie, and I go for not Wonder
Black Widow?
Yeah, Black Widow. Ooh. And she's amazing, and it's amazing how it's almost all of the Avengers are guys, and she's the one who stands out.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Yep, it's brilliant. Anyone else want to share? One more, right here in the white shirt. They don't have to be Marvel characters.
I mean, it helps.
If you want the mic, it's probably.
Well, actually, for me, it's between Phil Coulson and Captain America. I just feel that you guys have so much to handle with just being the leaders of these organizations, like with Coulson being the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Captain America being pretty much like the leader of the Avengers. It's just seeing how you guys, seeing how the characters react to different situations and just like how to solve the problems that they're faced with. It just inspires me to take that into the leadership roles that I play at school or in other extracurricular activities. So yeah.
Cool.
Very cool.
That's so nice.
Thank you.
Thank you to our brave volunteers in the audience. Jed, I want to ask you a question.
Oh, no.
So, no, it's fun.
Okay.
So, characters like Batman and Green Arrow are superheroes because of sheer dedication and hard work. Someone like Superman comes from outer space, but characters like Spider-Man and the Hulk are all examples of science gone awry. Mm-hmm. Does your attraction to superheroes and science fiction have anything to do with the appeal of science?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reason, I think the difference between Marvel and DC in general is that DC has these aliens and these fantastic people, and the Marvel approach is that it happens to regular people. It's extraordinary things happening to ordinary people in our real world. Mm-hmm. And so, Spider-Man's a great example. Spider-Man is a kid, a smart kid, but he's thrown into a situation that he doesn't understand. And that is what science is I don't have the answers and I'm trying to find them, and then you get to see him master it. A lot of it is physical, and he gets to climb up walls, and we don't necessarily get to do that, though if you start working on it now, maybe someday. But there's science solves to it, and I think that that's part of the hero origin is them getting the courage to answer a question they don't have the answer to. Yeah. Also in terms of making stories up, that's its own puzzle. So our attraction to superheroes in the sci-fi world, the reason we apply science as opposed to just straight fantasy, I think, is that there is a set of rules in the world, and so the puzzle we get to make is, okay, we've broken those rules. Now how do we try to apply those rules again to make the story work or make it feel believable, as opposed to, waving a wand and everything goes away. You have to come up with a concrete solution. I think that that's some of the appeal.
Absolutely. And Maurissa, STEAM, we're going to use STEAM, is obviously really cool in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it has a huge role in it. When you were developing the show, why was science and tech so important in terms of character and plot development? And why did you decide to have 2 scientists, 2 engineers, 1 hacker, et cetera?
Well, science is so cool. So it's absolutely something that we wanted on the show. One thing that Jed was sort of alluding to is it's very important to Marvel that all of their content is grounded in science. And so for us, we are sort of a continuation of that.
And sometimes that's harder, you know, with Thor.
With Thor, yes, but even with Thor,
Yeah.
they say that it's just science that we have yet to understand.
Right.
When we developed Fitz and Simmons, it was very important to us for them to be, you know, these two young, very accomplished, skilled, genius kids, and to have specialties. Fitz is engineering and tech, and Simmons is bio and chemistry. And we just wanted to represent that. And I think specifically with Gemma Simmons, you know, she is a strong young woman who's exceptionally talented in science, which is something that I think needs to be represented in the media, especially on our show. And yeah.
And we didn't want her, you know, there's no jokes about, oh, you don't get it because you're a girl or anything like that. She's just as smart as him. Everybody accepts it. There's never any discussion about it. You know, I think that that's one of the things that no one ever comments on our show about the fact that they're a bunch of badass women. They're just doing it.
Right. Yeah. We also have Daisy, who's incredible at code.
Right.
Because girls can do code, girls can do science.
Right, exactly. I'm glad you brought her up. So Chloe Bennett, who plays Skye, recently commented on the diversity of the cast and how proud she was that the characters represent the world. So Jeff, are you conscious of diversity when developing and casting the characters, and how important is that to you, just going off of what Maurissa was just talking about?
I think it's hugely important to all of us. And when we first started the show, the only character we had was Agent Coulson. And as we were looking to cast every other role, we opened it up to all ethnicities, just completely diverse. And it was really, there was no intention of, well, this character has to be this or that. And as they came forward, it was, Chloe was the best at that, and Ming was the best at that, and Henry was the best at that, or Fitzsimmons were the best at that in terms of actors. And so at a certain point, you want to make it look like the audience, which is the world we live in. Exactly. And so it makes it more interesting with characters coming from radically different backgrounds and showing them working together. We got a compliment from a guy when we were doing press just saying he felt like we'd picked up the mantle of Star Trek, which was a TV series before any of you were born. But what was great about it was it was interracial love story. It was
in the future. The projected reality in the future was the ship. Their #1 starship was populated by all kinds of people, some aliens, and the first interracial kiss that ever happened on TV happened on that show.
On Star Trek, and so you had black and Asian and white and alien,
Klingon,
and they were all together, and we sort of do that without thinking too much about it, really, because
none of the roles that are played by Ming's part, Chloe's part, Henry Simmons's role, none of those were designated to be Chinese American or African American. It just, those were the best actors for the part, and as Belle said, we like to represent the world that we live in, the world as it actually is, and the world is a diverse world. And with the exception of Star Trek, growing up, I didn't watch Star Trek as a little girl. Sorry, everyone.
It was already off the air.
He still wasn't born yet.
Very nice. These guys are very good. But I grew up watching television that had no faces that were like mine. So as a consequence, I told my mom when I was 7 years old, why can't I be blonde? Why can't I be like my Barbie doll? Why can't I be like I Dream of Jeannie?
I remember a number of years ago, I was on a show called Alias, and we shared offices with friends who were on Lost. And we went to a diversity panel, and it was for Asian American contingent. And there were people there who said the first time they had seen an Asian couple kiss on television, Asian to Asian, was on Lost. Right. Jin and Sun were the first couple. It was the first, this is the 2000s. It's the first time they had ever seen it represented on television, which was crazy. There's a lot of, you'll see interracial stuff, people of different backgrounds coming together. But for them, that was a huge thing. And that really struck me, because I've had the advantage of having grown up in a world that favored people who were, well, now that I'm old and white. And that's changing. And the other piece of it was, we try and make our writing staff and our crew also reflect the world that way. So that our writers' room, I mean, I'm glad Maurissa was here, but we have Black writers, and we don't have a Latino writer this year, but we have, we try and reflect on our crew and our crew and our writers that same world. It's important for all of us.
It spans across the board from us to the actors, to directors, to our staff and crew.
Right. I also think there's another aspect to it, because like we're saying, that to reflect the world as it is. But I think that there's some people who live in separated out, environments, who don't see the world as it is, as diverse. They have their very small world, but they have a TV in their living room. And so if you can present other people that they're not familiar with, or other races, or other any diversity, then they just, they're just like me. I guess I don't have to worry about that anymore. And that's sort of the goal, is not to write the person, just write a person. And if you can paint them with any brush, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. Yeah, we try to preach that a lot at Google. It's like, you write a character, you write a description of someone, but have a reason as to why you choose to make them how you make them, right? If it's going to be a man, that's fine, but have the reason and the intention behind it, right? Just write a script and then go back and then make it a woman, right? You don't necessarily have to put in all these different stereotypes and all these different, what we think that they should be, right? You can just write it regularly and then just switch it up. So I totally agree with that. Clark, when you were at the Paley Center a few years ago, you talked about your perspective as the father of a teenage girl and how much joy you get seeing these tremendous female characters not only kicking butt, but kicking butt in science. Why do you think strong female characters make for such an impactful story?
Well, I think, like, as these guys said, there has been a history of there being a lag time in terms of what you see on screen, because of access, really, about, people who are making the show are in a certain community, and they have just easier access for people like them. And unless there's a real kind of mandate to make it look like the world, it doesn't look like the world. And I'm excited that there's these characters on our show who excel in those fields, and that there's a kind of power equilibrium between all of them. And
except for Coulson, he's sort of on the top, the power equilibrium.
Not anymore, I'm told. I'm told he's been demoted, but that's for next season. But that's what's out there, you know what I mean? So it's kind of crazy otherwise. I live in a house with an incredibly strong woman and a younger, very strong woman, and there's also a power balance at our house, to say the least. So it just feels like that's what the world is, and it should look like that, A. And B, I think that there's a lot of people who had the experience that Maurissa had, which is you need to sometimes, you form these role models. We did a thing called WonderCon in downtown Los Angeles a couple of months ago, right when we wrapped the season. And it was so many LA families who were kind of nerdy, which a lot of us are, and these days, because there's so much material like that out there. A lot of families, and a lot of them dressed up, and a lot of girls dressed up like a superhero named Quake, or a scientist named Simmons. And there are now brilliant, strong role models for them in the culture. And I think it's important to put those things out there. And I think, when I grew up, there was this thing, boys were better at math than girls. And my daughter goes to a girls' school where they don't play that. You better not say anything like that. And as a result, my daughter, who kind of comes from parents who are artists, went in with a little bit of that in her head. Yeah. And she's killing it in math now. So we don't know whose kid she is, but.
I'd like to just point out one thing to add to this, is that, you see these characters on television, and it's wonderful, but there's also in our field, where they're not on television, but they are the heroes that you see their work week after week, and they are as diverse as all of you. They're from everywhere, and they are doing the heavy math. They are doing scripting of coding. They are creating new, effect simulations that are for the water or for the powers. They are compositing all the material together to make the final image, and they are women, and they are women of color, and they are from China, they are from Peru, they're from Ireland, they're from, all over, and they have taken their love of science and math and physics and everything else, and they have applied it into their other passion, which is art. And they have blended the two worlds together to create the wonderful visuals that you see, in every episode. So it's just not people that are in front of the camera, but it's not to take away from Clark or anything like that, or the show, but we have roughly about, I would easily say we have 80 to 100 artists working on our show between 4 different facilities for every episode.
That's amazing.
And that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, and I'm proud to say also that we are a 100% visual effects LA-based show, so because I'm very loyal to LA talent, and that's important to us.
That's important. Sabrina, following up to that, can you talk some more about some of the ways that STEM skills and having those diverse perspectives behind the scenes are just as important as having that on-screen representation?
Absolutely. As Mark was saying, we have anywhere from 60 to 80 artists working on our show at any given time, and we have multiple shows in production at the same time, so they're working on multiple different episodes. The background that we have Ignacio, who he's got a background in engineering, right, Mark?
Yeah,
and he does
engineer.
our modeling and is handling our CG, and that is one of the reasons our show looks good, is because it's based in science and math. It actually would really work. This thing would actually move up. It's not just made to look that way. It would actually function. We have people from Ireland that works on our show. One of our animators and CG supervisors at one of our houses is from Ireland. The varying background that many of these people have. One of our lead compositors at one of our biggest houses, I know on the off time, I know her really well, and she's out right now looking at birds in nature, and she's going out there and helping with all the places that have had fires in California, and she documents all the birds that have come back to these areas after the fact and how it's repopulating, and she helps document that for science, and she's one of the top compositors on our show, and she does a lot of the cool shots. Dana, I've known her for years. It all blends together and helps us get the show to look as cool and as fascinating as we want it, bringing all these backgrounds. Everybody's got an opinion, and we try to put that in and make it look as real as possible.
All the perspectives.
And that also extends, I think, one of the things that's great about film and TV in general is its science. I mean, just a camera itself was at one point just an experiment, and you work with people every day who have a specific skill that you know nothing about, how the light works, how the aperture, the f-stop, all these things that thank you for knowing that, because I do not. But it's sort of a team sport science experiment, play, acting, goof around.
That's exactly
musical.
I mean, the guy he works with, we were talking about early, this guy Gary D'Amico, his job is to blow stuff up. That's his
safely.
Job. His job is to make sure when there's a giant car explosion or a building explodes, and we do it real, we don't just do it fake.
No, we don't. No, we don't. If I'm shooting around a corner and there's bullets going off here, when I look over there, when one's too close, it's Gary going, sorry, with this gun.
With his little paintball gun.
But I mean, making things explode, like, I don't know if you guys watch Mythbusters, it's science. Right. And there's all kinds of, they figure out how to flip cars, and they figure out how to blow stuff up.
D'Amico does have the best job, because he's like, we say, can you flip a car? He goes, oh no, we'll do a test. And you're okay, so he buys a car, and then he tries to flip it, I guess I gotta put it there, and tries again, and so, half the day he's just lighting different things on fire to see how they burn.
That's his job.
Yeah. He's like, this one makes good embers. It's like, what is it? It's torn up carpet.
You can definitely imagine the little boy that he was.
Yeah.
In the job he's doing now.
We had a huge car explosion this year.
Yes.
Huge, and was it the hood or the sunroof of this car?
He didn't apply
Everything's
quite
completely
enough
controlled,
science.
and he was a little short on his science. This thing landed like half a mile away, right by the snacks. I was like, Gary, it's over there by the snacks, and he was like, cool.
Yeah. But they know, that when they rig these things, they have the door tied out, and they know how the physics of how it's going to react. They know exactly how much explosives to put in it, and then they always add just a little bit more. But yeah,
we joke, and they want to make sure that everybody's safe, because at the end of it's safety, and they work a lot with the stunt guys.
Right.
And we have people. There's a thing called a decelerator, which is you could jump off the roof here, and you've seen people like fall and land on their feet, you know, and it's like they can really do that because it's
Timed
slow,
out.
mathematically it slows just time so it actually stops you right before.
It's like a smart bungee.
It's like a smart bungee, and it's so amazing. But again, science, and so it affects on every level. But when you realize that, you know, every time somebody gets punched and there's a hydraulic, they have to figure out how much should the hydraulic ram throw the guy so he doesn't really throw him through the wall, but just to the wall.
But what you don't see in their prep for the stunt guys is they know the weight of the actor, so they have a big giant bag of sand or something like that, a weight bag, and they'll work on that first, and the bag will hit the ground, and then they'll just keep adjusting
That's
the
always
math.
the problem, because they always they do it once and they're like, what's your real weight? I also want to say one thing, which was when I was a kid, and a couple of times with friends of mine, we tried to do this stuff with like Super 16 little weird cameras, and it was almost impossible to get it developed. And it's very, very different now. There's a couple of really interesting features that have been shot on iPhones, and there is software available that you can, that comes with a Macintosh that you can edit with, and there's a lot of ways to make films with no money. You know, that you write yourselves and to start to, and put some
And get them distributed on
rudimentary visual
YouTube.
effects. Yeah, and you can start doing this now yourselves.
But not jumping off of roofs or
Please don't do that.
exploding cars.
No,
And not blowing up
Let's
cars.
not do that yet.
There was a shot that we did with
No,
Clark this past season.
Mr. Gregg said I should jump off the house.
Yeah.
Please.
They talked about lighting everything on fire,
And it
I
just
swear.
said, no, Mom, really, I'm practicing.
But there was a shot that we did with Clark where all he was doing was looking for Daisy up on monitors, and he's in front of his desk, and we use what's called a motion control rig. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a camera rig that is run by a computer, so it makes it repeatable and makes it and the registration matches. Meaning, you know, you can always have a camera that's just in one place and just run multiple passes. It never moves. That's a lock-off camera. But when you want to have something that has perspective change and it moves, we use a motion control camera. So here, we had to have this whole world in his scene was moving around him, but he was not aware of it. He was not focused on it. He was only focused on the monitors. So everything around him was a blur. So we had to mathematically figure out what frame per second to shoot all the agents that were moving in and out of his office. And to replicate proper human motion is 24 frames per second. So we did this shot. It was about, I think, about a 12-second shot, something like that. But to shoot what we wanted to have all the agents moving quickly, we then moved at 1 frame per second and adjusted the shutter and everything else. And therefore, that same 12-second shot took 10 minutes of people walking in and out of his office. And the camera just creeped and creeped and creeped like this. But the math and the science and what was created there was the fact that it was interpolating its rate of speed to sync with the actual real plate of
12-second
Clark
shot, yeah.
for a 12-second shot.
So there's a 12-second shot of you and 10 minutes of other people walking around.
Yes.
Very fast.
In and out. Bringing folders in, looking at stuff, and all these things. I'm telling, okay, now you're here, you're looking at the monitor, now you go out. Now you're here. For 10 minutes, I was talking like this, which is some of you hearing me now would find it hard to believe. Not. I can talk a long time.
I want to make sure we have enough time for questions.
Sure.
So can we go to the audience? If you have a question, just raise your hand, and then we'll bring the mic to you.
What is the most difficult yet rewarding thing that's like in your job?
It's a great question for Maurissa.
The most difficult thing. Well, I think Jeff Bell actually coined this, that running a show is very much like plugging the holes in a sinking ship.
Right.
Because so many things are happening at the same time, clearly from what everyone has spoken about today.
Right.
You can sort of glean and understand that there are multiple departments, many people working in those departments, all to make this final product. And it goes from the breaking of story with our room full of writers, to writing the script, to then doing rewrites on the script, then to prepping that episode, and then shooting the episode. And then that's when Kolpack and post-production comes in, Kolpack and Sabrina, and make everything pretty and make the magic happen.
And then we score it and we mix it.
And then we score it and we mix it. So that alone, combined with the amount of people and combined with the ticking clock that is always, always right here.
Right. I think the other phrase you use, which I like, is it's building an airplane while it's falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
Because the thing that's fun about our job is that we start shooting. We have about a couple episodes in the can by the time we start airing, and so sometimes we are writing the show as it's airing. And as you're wondering what's going to happen at the end of the season, we are also wondering that, and trying to figure it out. And we have ideas always going in, but it always moves and changes. And so that's the fun of it, is that it's a work in progress while you're making it. There's usually, I think, 8 episodes that we're keeping in our minds at any given time, but between breaking, outlining, writing, prepping, shooting, in post-production. And so wrestling that is
right. The reward part of it, though, just to finish your question, is when it all comes together. I think all of us are sort of in this business because it is so fun and so cool, and we were mesmerized by it at some point when growing up. And we still get excited over, something being set on fire or something exploding. That's something that we all, still have joy for. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah. We'll try to keep like one person to answer, just because I want to be conscious of time.
Sure, you can go first. Okay. Hello, my name's Quentin. I'm from S.H.I.E.L.D, and I'd like to ask, I guess, specifically, how do you guys feel about, how would Mr. Coulson react to the new Hydra member?
Clinton from S.H.I.E.L.D, you're setting me up here, my friend. When you say the new Hydra member, do you mean the recent development in Marvel Comics that the panel, I should say, that has Steve Rogers, Captain America, saying "Hail Hydra"?
Yes.
Precisely.
I mean, how would you feel?
It's a travesty.
If the dreamiest person you knew, the cutest, the most heroic, said "Hail Hydra"? I have to admit, at first I was very upset. And a lot of people online, I noticed, got very angry about this, and at a certain point on the Twitter, I chose to chime in because it was getting too nasty, because this guy's writing stories, and I like to write stories, and there's a shocking twist like that. I thought, before we take this guy out of his house and chop him up into pieces, let's see where the story's going, because we've certainly told bits of our story that were very unpopular at first, and there
could be another.
It's all in, as far as I'm concerned. These are myths. These are our culture's version of Greek myths about heroes and anti-heroes and villains, and I think everything's in play. I'd like to see everything considered. I wasn't happy, but I want to give this guy the time to see where he's going.
Nice. Thank you. Was there someone next to you? Oh, there.
Okay. Hi, my name is Tancharoen, and I'm also from S.H.I.E.L.D, the S.H.I.E.L.D Tech Academy. And my question is, what is the process to getting an episode scored with music? So how do you go about choosing, having the person score each episode, basically?
Well, Bear McCreary scores our episodes, but the way we start is we edit the episode with sort of temp score. So before we had a library, now we have 66 episodes in the can, so we can use mostly his music that he's done for our show to temp a score. Oh, this is a fast-moving moment, this is an emotional moment, and we sort of temp it out. Then we sit in a room with him and watch it and talk through the moments, and she's realizing something here, there should be a little bass drum, and we talk through, little moments, and then he goes off, he does...
Just a little bit about the theme. We have theme and how we use.
Oh yeah, well he has themes for each character, and we try to weave those in. And sometimes, if you're paying real attention, there's a little bit of spoiler alert on it. If you'll hear a little bit of the Hydra theme under something, sometimes it'll tell you something. But then he goes and demos it out on his software, hands that to his workforce, which is I think 10 people, and then we score it live. We score it with sometimes up to 80 orchestra members each episode. So it's not, just when you think so many people have worked on the show, you go to a scoring session and hear a full orchestra play the theme. It's one of the coolest parts of our job.
It's like you sit in a room like this, and they project it like that, except you are all the orchestra,
Right.
and he conducts it, and it's spectacular.
And also just to give the shout out, that's all done within the span of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
We make one of these every 8 days. We write it, and then from starting to shoot it to finishing that episode, it's 8 days, and then we start a new one, and then we're editing that and finishing it as we're writing another one in 8 days so that we keep the trains running for 22 of those, which is why I'm actually 14 years old. I just look like that.
Awesome. We're actually at time, but let's take one more question. Right there on the end.
Hello. I just had a question. How do you guys, for every new season, come up with kind of new challenges or antagonists for the main characters to face?
Nice. Bill?
You go, sir.
In terms of antagonist, we try to draw from the Marvel Universe. The hardest thing that we do is every season we stare at a whiteboard and there's nothing there, and we start, and which I guess we get to do with you guys today, is make stories up. But we ask, anytime you're asking a story, it's like, what's the compelling thing for your characters? What do we want to put in conflict with Coulson or with S.H.I.E.L.D? And what have we done before that we don't want to do again? And what will Marvel let us have? Like we had Inhumans last year. And so that was a great thing for us because Inhumans represented so much. It's people who are different, and how does the world feel about them? And it allowed us to do a lot of different things. We had Hydra, which is this giant, Nazi kind of organization. And they represent a different kind of threat against S.H.I.E.L.D. And so every year we try and find a different group or individual. We try and make it personal so that it's someone Coulson knows or Daisy knows or our people know, so that you care. It's like, what do the bad guys want that we have, and what makes good conflict? Because we're always looking for that.
And that's the hardest question every year is, what do the bad guys want? Because the bad guy wanting to blow up the world is, really? Can you relate to that? It's like, that's
Actually,
the hardest.
3 people just nodded yes.
That was a little scary. Yeah. Everybody went, yes, I can.
Yes, of course.
I want to say one thing, though, which is a lot of times with a show, the writers kind of build a model, and they just plug different pieces into roughly that model. And if you pay attention to it, it's kind of the same show every year. And what's amazing to me is that every year, these people and the other writers, they have the guts, and I think it really takes some guts, to tear it all apart. We got to the end of season 1, and all of a sudden, there was Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Oh, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't exist anymore. And I was, oh my God, what are we going to call the show? And that's happened repeatedly with Hydra, and then the Inhumans showing up and being this outbreak, and it's exciting, really exciting for the actors to know that there are some things that have worked and at the core of the ensemble, but you're going to have new players and some new stripped down version that you'll build again from scratch every year. It makes the hiatus kind of exciting, and it's hard for me to answer these questions and not just pull them aside and go, what's going to happen now?
Who is the new
Also from our perspective, with the same thing, it is the greatest opportunity and pleasure for me personally, and probably for Sabrina as well, is that usually what happens in visual effects is a show comes on the air, designs the look, and then it's a canned effect. Every week it's the same thing until they can't afford money, and then you start having things happen off camera with a sound effect, And
Yeah, look, what was that? A plane exploded.
Exactly.
Or look, it's Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly. And with this show, every year it comes back, it evolves. Now, yes, we do have our certain objects, but there are new challenges. And so for me, as an artist, that it is hugely gratifying and wonderfully exciting because my job is never boring. I'm never producing the same thing over and over again,
Wait till season 4, my friend.
I know. So anyways, we change it up, and every year we set the bar a little higher.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And hopefully next season we'll have even stronger STEM impacts and, continuing to encourage the youth. And so thank you all so much. Let's give our panelists a big round of applause.